Officer of the law. I'm just kidding. You're an officer of marketing. I think I should shift this a little this way.
In case I accidentally lean.
There we go. Yeah, just in case we lean. We don't want to lean too much. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Coach's Corner, Tiffany Arcari here, your host, walking you through the interviews with all of our coaches in the $1 Million Year program. I've carved out time with this woman here who's remarkably busy. So first of all, thank you so much for carving out some time to chat with us today. Kathryn Pierce, Chief Marketing Officer, Govero Accounting, Tax Law Advisory, but you have your hand in every single little marketing pot that is here, the website, everything. You're so driven, and I find you're just in all of those details, catching all of the things. Kathryn, tell us about yourself, my friend. Why don't we start with, why'd you choose a career at Govero? What made you follow Bob as a leader?
Yeah, so it's kind of a funny story. So previously I worked at an advertising agency, branding and advertising agency in Toronto. And throughout that experience, we got to work with like tons of people from different industries, beer, healthcare, real estate, developers, skincare, everything and anything, which was a really fun experience, but kind of, I felt sort of limited. It was this weird thing where it was like, we meet these companies and then we are helping them with marketing, but we could see them struggling in other areas, but we were so limited by scope of work that we couldn't really like assist them in other areas. And it's tough. People come to you and they're struggling in other areas like pricing or, those sorts of things. And you want to help them, but you're like, no, you have to follow the scope of work. And so it felt very limiting.
Right.
So for me, and there was just some companies we couldn't help. And that for me is sort of tough because I want to, jump in. Just like you kind of jump in and go down a rabbit hole of trying to help everybody. So I actually took a postgraduate course with UFT in my spare time. And so I was taking one for online e-commerce and business management. And we were just talking about all this new technology that was coming out and how businesses were transforming digitally. And, I was learning a lot more about small business and how like 98% of businesses in Canada are small business. Canada is really big for entrepreneurship. The company I was working for at the time, their services were working with bigger and bigger and bigger companies. And for me, that didn't sit well. I wanted to be able to make these services accessible to smaller businesses and to entrepreneurs and to kind of help demystify some of that. Because companies were just, charging like, and I get it, $50,000 for a logo, that sort of thing. But I wanted to help companies be able to get their brands out there and have these elements without paying that price tag. So when I learned about Govero, my family has accounting background, and really there was a video that I found online about Bob talking about entrepreneurship and the importance of financials as like a core foundational thing that needs to be in line for them to be able to do all the other things.
Right.
And for me, that just made a whole lot of sense. And so I couldn't help but wanting to be involved. So I met with Bob and we talked about aspirations for the firm and where we wanted to go and how we wanted to help and things like the $1 Million Year program. And so at that point, it was like a no-brainer to get involved. And there are aspects of marketing in there, but yeah, it was more just our ability to help small business owners and entrepreneurs.
Lucky us. Yeah. It's not every day, right? A Bob plugs in people to specific positions. And I'm definitely finding the theme here with the people. Mm-hmm. Goal getters, people that don't turn a blind eye, status quo, not enough for us. We go deeper, harder, faster.
Just want to help.
Yeah. And I love that we are cut from the same cloth where it's
100%.
We want them to have access to everything, to give 100% and go 100% $1 million years. So you've worked with some really, really big brands. It's kind of cool to hear deeper secret sides of your stories. But when it comes to entrepreneurs, I know is it in your blood? Like, do you have some family members that are also entrepreneurs? And then that's maybe why you're like extra passionate about it. I know that's sort of the situation for me.
So my grandfather, again, he had an accounting firm, so he was an entrepreneur.
Oh, he had a firm.
Yes,
I love that.
Yes, he had his own firm, and so kind of grew up with that. My mom worked in accounting as well. My dad worked in bigger companies, but he always kind of had this entrepreneurial, helping, servitude type mindset as well. So it was kind of just something that always came up. But I always just like to have more like face-to-face helping. Like even when I first started in like retail as a teenager, like face-to-face and the gratitude and fulfillment you feel, like just like the little things of helping people and like what you can do to make their day, you know? So for me, it just made that much more sense to want to work with entrepreneurs.
I would ask what your why is, but I feel like that's your why. Did you want to elaborate a little bit deeper as to why you're so driven to help make a difference?
I think it's because two things. One is that one of the things I kind of found frustrating, and I know Bob says the same thing about financials, is that there's always kind of this like cloak of mystery put over how you go about doing things. They're like, you have this challenge, we have the solution, but we're not going to give you the tools and the ability to do it yourself.
Right.
And so sometimes what I would find just organically getting into conversation with people who wanted to be in business and had really good ideas that they were passionate about is they were like, but I can't do this. I don't have the money for this, you know, like building websites. And I'm like, I learned how to build websites myself, just like all hands on. I didn't think I'd be able to do it. And now I'm doing it all the time now. So I'm like, you can absolutely do this. So for me, there was a little bit of frustration with all the companies out there that are trying to be secretive and like, you know,
Yeah.
So, and I think that, you know, that's where Bob and I also are very aligned as well, because he tells people things and shares advice with people that other people wouldn't ordinarily give that away.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I think it came out a little bit of annoyance is why I like to help people, because I'm just like, I have nothing to lose by sharing this information with you. So, and in like on the long term, it's like you establish those relationships and then you can work with each other on more fulsome things, because just because people can do it doesn't mean they have the time to or the passion to do it. So then they can work with an expert to get those things done and get them done correctly. But I feel like there's a lot of things like just them understanding how things work and empowering them to understand and be able to make informed decisions is an area where I like doing that. I was a tutor in college. It was always really fun to take complex ideas and then explain it in ways that different people can understand it, that works for them.
Yep.
So yeah. And I think, you know, teaching is one thing. I know Bob mentioned that his dream was to be a teacher when he was younger. So again, I think we all have all of these little similarities in that way. So
I think it's that like ethos, right? Of like actually creating meaningful change. And it's interesting because the work that we do is sort of like fundamentally grassroots changing the world, right? Because we're inspiring all of these people and helping these people get these tools to go forth and actually make meaningful change throughout the world. I love it that it is that mindset of like collaboration over competition, transparency, like actually showing other people how to do the things is definitely a game changer. And I love that we have all of these people available to us in GoVero in the MDY program. So marketing, you've got vast knowledge. I can't even express how brilliant I truly feel Kathryn is, like a well of knowledge. You're constantly learning too. Like, I feel like there's just no cap with you. And like, you'll just keep going, bigger, better, stronger, faster. She's addicted to learning. So if you could give a tip, because you're constantly consuming useful content on how to be better, faster, stronger, if you could share a tip, a trick, a hack, what would that be?
So it's funny because even though there's all these new things coming out, despite that, the one I always go back to, and I don't actually know who said this, but I always bring it up when conversations start going in that direction, is when you try to appeal to everyone, you appeal to no one. I find, and I see it happen so often, that there's all these new strategies or tactics or ways people are doing things. And sometimes people get caught up in doing those things that they lose sight of why. And, sometimes they were like, I want to market this to everybody, but that's not what the intended purpose was of what got them going. So sometimes I think people just need to keep coming back to, does this tactic serve my mission? Because there's always going to be things out there. I remember I talked to this client one time and we were talking about different types of digital marketing strategies and Google ads, Facebook ads, all these different marketing. And he was like, we've tried that. And it's but and I'm like, you can try it, but were you intentional? What was your messaging?
Yeah.
Who did you go after?
Yeah.
There's all those nuances and complexities of it that you have to stay true to your brand, and then you can use those elements. So basically, just don't get lost with all the hype and the trends, and stay focused on who you are, right?
That is such a trendy thing that you said. I was just talking to one of my girlfriends runs a virtual assistant business, and she was just saying the other day, she will say no to her clients that are I saw this on TikTok and now I want to do it in my business. And it's exactly what you're saying, where it's stick to the mission. Does it serve the goals, the purpose of the business?
Yeah.
An excellent piece of advice. Heard it from Kathryn. I'm clipping that out and dropping it in its own separate post. Stick to the mission. Speaking of missions, celebrities, people that inspire you. Kathryn, I know who you're a big fan of, but if a celebrity were to endorse Kathryn Pierce, who would it be and why would they be endorsing you?
I think probably Brendan Burchard. So no surprise there. If I had to choose, this was a tough one, but I think I'm part of his community. And one of the things he always just reminds people, which just rings so true to me, is it being intentional.
Yeah.
And doing things that matter, and not getting caught up in everything else. And so I think that that's something that I try to with marketing and branding is really important, is being so intentional about your purpose, your reason for being here. So I would say Brendan.
Oh my God, I admire that about you. What a huge quality. And yes, he would endorse you because you are the embodiment of being intentional.
I just repeat him in my head. I get in the car, I'm like, who do I want to be today? Which version of myself is going to show up? Because it's up to me, right?
Yeah.
So most days anyways.
I feel like every action you take, every word that you speak, every email that you type, you are quite an intentional person. And just your answer there just gave a lot of insight to Kathryn, who she is, how she operates, why she's so remarkable, and we adore her here at MDY and Go Grow. Kathryn, we're going to end Coach's Corner with a quote like we always do. What is your favorite quote? What do you want to leave us with? What inspires you along the way?
So always a goodie, Simon Sinek. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. That's always my favorite. And again, I think that also kind of rings back to what I was saying about don't always get hyped up with trying to, necessarily copy people or be so focused on all those little nuances. And it's why you do what you do that is really going to connect people, build trust, build credibility, build relationships and loyalty eventually. And then just keep delivering on that. So
you are brilliant, a remarkable human being. Lucky us for having you as a coach in the $1 Million Year program. You'll see Kathryn coming out you'll see Kathryn coming out all the time, Bureau. I'm always plugging you in. Always sharing brilliance. Kathryn, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been Coach's Corner. Go out there and get it, goal getters.